I was 14 when my parents decided I didn't belong in their home anymore. Funny thing is, I don't know why I was surprised. My older sister, Melanie, had always been the golden child, the center of their universe. Me, I was just there, but I never thought they'd actually send me away. It all started when Melanie, 17 at the time, dropped a bomb on the family. She was pregnant. And the father? Jake, your classic deadbeat boyfriend. A 20-year-old loser who barely held a job and drove a car that sounded like it might explode at any moment. He had a tattoo of a $sign on his neck, which was ironic, considering he was always broke. I expected my parents to freak out, yell, ground her, something. But no, my mom actually cried tears of joy. "I'm going to be a grandma," she sobbed, hugging Melanie like she'd just won an award. My dad, like always, just sat there, staring at his plate, too spineless to say anything. And me? I sat there, mouth open, wondering if I was in some alternate reality. If I had gotten a girl pregnant at 14, they would have thrown me into military school without a second thought. But Melanie? She got a standing ovation. It got worse. A week later, my parents called me into the living room for a family discussion. I already knew that meant bad news for me. Mom smiled at me like she was about to do me a favor. "Logan, honey, with the baby coming, Melanie will need more space. So we've decided it would be best if you went to live with Grandma and Grandpa in Texas." I blinked. "What?" Dad cleared his throat, avoiding eye contact. "It's a great opportunity for you. They have a pool." A pool? As if that made up for the fact that I was being kicked out of my own home. "So let me get this straight," I said, voice sharp. "Melanie gets knocked up, and I'm the one who has to leave?" Mom sighed like I was the one being unreasonable. "Families make sacrifices for each other, Logan. This is what's best for everyone. Everyone except me. It's not forever," Dad added weakly. "Just until things settle down." I knew better. Nothing ever settled down when it came to Melanie. If I left, I wasn't coming back. Then Melanie strutted into the room, eating a bowl of ice cream like she hadn't just ruined my life. "You should be grateful, little bro," she said, smirking. "At least you won't have to deal with midnight feedings and dirty diapers." I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to realize how insane this was, but they were too busy coddling her. Over the next few weeks, my life was erased. My books were boxed up and shoved into the attic. My posters were ripped down, my bed disassembled. Melanie was already redecorating. Pastel colors, baby clothes, stuffed animals, like I had never existed. The final straw? One day, I came home to find Jake wearing my favorite hoodie, the one I had saved up for months to buy. "Hey, that's mine," I snapped. Jake just shrugged. "Relax, kid. You're moving to Texas. Won't need warm clothes there." I turned to my mom, expecting her to back me up. Instead, she sighed. "Logan, don't make a scene. It's just a hoodie, just my hoodie. Just my room, just my life." That was when I realized the truth. I wasn't part of this family. So I packed my bags, said my silent goodbyes, and left without looking back. But I made myself a promise that night. One day, they'd regret this. They were sending me away like I was nothing. One day, they'd wish they had treated me better. I wish I could say I left home with my head held high, determined to prove everyone wrong. But the truth? I felt like garbage. The car ride to Texas was long and miserable. My grandparents, bless them, tried to make conversation, but I wasn't in the mood. What was I supposed to say? "Hey, thanks for taking me in because my parents didn't want me anymore?" Instead, I just stared out the window, watching my old life disappear behind me. By the time we pulled into their driveway, I felt completely numb. Their house was small, but nice, cozy. It smelled like coffee and cinnamon, and my grandma had already set up a guest room for me. It wasn't big, but at least it was mine, a place where no one would barge in and steal my stuff. Still, it didn't feel like home. I started school a week later, and it sucked. I was the new kid in a place where everyone had known each other since kindergarten. On my first day, a guy asked why I moved. When I told him my pregnant sister needed my room, he just stared. Dude, that's messed up. No kidding. Lunch was the worst. I sat alone for the first few weeks, picking at my food while everyone else laughed and joked with their friends. I hated every second of it. The only place that felt remotely okay was my grandparents' garage. Grandpa had a workshop where he built furniture shelves, chairs, even little carvings. One night, he found me sitting in there, just zoning out. "You want to learn?" he asked, holding up a block of wood. I almost said no. I almost told him to leave me alone. But instead, I shrugged. I guess that was the first time in a long time that someone wanted to spend time with me. No strings attached, no conditions, just because, at first, I sucked. My cuts were uneven, my measurements were off, and I kept hammering my thumb instead of the nails. But Grandpa was patient. He didn't yell or sigh in frustration. He just showed me how to do it right. And for the first time in months, I felt useful. As time passed, things got a little easier. I still missed my friends back home, but I started talking to this guy in my computer class, Marcus. He was into gaming and tech, just like me. We bonded over our mutual hatred of school cafeteria food. "Dude, why does the pizza taste like rubber?" he asked one day, making a face. "No idea," I said. "Pretty sure this is the same slice from last week." He laughed, and just like that, I had my first friend in Texas. Marcus introduced me to some other kids, and slowly, my lunch table went from just me to a group of people who actually liked having me around. It wasn't home, but it was something. I still didn't hear much from my parents. Mom would call once a month, acting like she cared. "How's school? Are you making friends? Oh, by the way, Melanie is having the cutest cravings right now." I stopped answering her calls after a while. Dad would get on the phone at the end, always with the same line, "Be good for your grandparents." Like I was some kind of foster kid they had dumped onto someone else. Melanie, she never called, never texted, not even a fake apology. Nothing. I guess one shouldn't have expected one. By the time Melanie actually had her baby, I had almost gotten used to my new life. I barely even thought about home anymore. Then one day, out of nowhere, she called me. I was so shocked to see her name on my screen that I almost didn't answer. "Logan, hey!" Her voice was sickly sweet. Too sweet. "What do you want?" I asked flatly. She gasped. "Is that any way to talk to your big sister? I was just calling to check in. We haven't talked in so long." "Gee, wonder why?" She ignored that. "So, listen, Olivia's christening is coming up and we'd really love for you to be here." I rolled my eyes. "We? Please." She didn't care if I was there. She just wanted to show off her perfect little family. "Can't," I said. "Got school." "Oh, come on, Logan. Don't be like that. Grandma and Grandpa can pay for your flight. You know they'd love to see you visit too." There it was. The real reason for the call. She wasn't just inviting me, she wanted our grandparents to fork over cash for her kid's big day. "Ask Mom and Dad," I said, already done with this conversation. There was a pause. "Well, they have been helping a lot, but money's been a little tight." Of course it had. I hung up. The next time I saw my parents, I was 18 and graduating high school. They actually flew down for the ceremony, which shocked me. But when they arrived, it was clear they weren't there for me. Mom spent half the time showing off pictures of Olivia. "Oh, she's getting so big. She looks just like Melanie when she was a baby." Dad just nodded along. Same old story. At dinner, I told them I wasn't coming back. I was staying in Texas, going to college here, and building my own life. Mom looked confused. "But your room is still there." No, it wasn't. I had seen it in the background of their FaceTime calls. Pink walls, unicorn bedding, a princess canopy. "That's Olivia's room now," I said, voice calm. "I don't have a room there anymore." Dad didn't say anything. He just looked tired. Mom tried to argue, but I was done. They had made it clear where I stood in the family a long time ago. After dinner, Grandpa pulled me aside and handed me a check. "Seed money," he said, "for your future. Don't tell Grandma." I looked down at the check. $5,000. "I believe in you, kid," he said, patting my shoulder. I swallowed the lump in my throat. For the first time in years, I felt like someone actually saw me. By the time I was 20, I had built something for myself. A life. A future. I worked at a tech repair shop, fixing computers, saving money, and studying business. Meanwhile, Melanie, still at home, still making excuses. Olivia was 3 now, and Jake had already bailed, moved out, came back, left again. Classic. Then, one random Tuesday, my phone rang. Mom's number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Her voice was shaky. "Logan, your sister was in a car accident." I sat up straight. "Is she okay?" "She broke her leg and hip. She can't work." "And Jake left. For good this time." I waited. I knew there was more. "We're struggling with the medical bills," she admitted. "And Olivia, she needs help." We were hoping maybe you could visit, reconnect with the family. Your father really misses you." I stared at my phone. 10 years. It had taken 10 years for them to finally need me. And suddenly, I had all the power. I let the silence stretch between us, listening to Mom's shaky breathing on the other end of the line. She was waiting for me to jump in and say I'd come rushing back to save the day. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, staring at the computer screen in front of me. A few years ago, I would have given anything to hear her say she needed me. Now, it just felt hollow. "You want me to come back?" I repeated, my voice flat. "Yes," Mom said quickly, latching onto my words like a lifeline. "Just for a little while. Just to help. Your sister is really struggling, Logan. I cut her off. "She's struggling now? But when I was struggling, you packed my bags and shipped me off without a second thought." She let out a weak laugh, like she was trying to smooth things over. "Oh, sweetheart, that was different. You know we only did what was best for you, did you?" Another silence. I should have hung up. I should have told her I didn't owe them anything and gone back to my life. But then I thought about Olivia, a 10-year-old kid, stuck in the middle of this disaster, just like I had been. She didn't deserve this. So I made a decision. "I'll visit," I said finally. "But I'm not moving back. And I'm not bailing Melanie out." Mom sounded relieved, like she'd just won the lottery. "Oh, honey, thank you. You'll see, being back home will remind you how much we love you." I didn't respond, because home wasn't there, not anymore. A week later, I landed back in the town I hadn't seen in years. It was strange stepping off the plane, walking through familiar streets that felt like they belonged to someone else's past. I had booked a hotel instead of staying with them. No way was I sleeping on the couch like a guest in what used to be my own house. When I pulled up to my parents' place, I just sat in my rental car for a minute, staring at the house that had once been mine. Nothing had changed. The same porch swing, the same crack in the driveway. But now, it felt foreign, like I was visiting a place I had only seen in a dream. I took a deep breath, got out, and knocked on the door. Dad answered, and for the first time in forever, he actually looked happy to see me. "Logan." His voice was softer than I remembered. "It's good to have you home." I didn't correct him. This wasn't home. Mom came rushing in behind him, pulling me into a hug like she hadn't ignored me for years. "Oh, look at you. You've grown up so much." Yeah, that's what happens when you're left to figure life out on your own. Then there was Melanie. She was sprawled on the couch, her leg in a cast, scrolling through her phone. She barely looked up when I walked in. "Oh, you actually came. No thank you. No sorry for treating you like crap. Just that." I bit back my irritation. "Yeah, guess one did." She didn't respond. And then Olivia came running into the room. She skidded to a stop when she saw me, big brown eyes wide with curiosity. "Are you Uncle Logan?" I forced a smile. "That's me." She grinned. "Mom says, you're really smart. You fix computers, right?" I blinked. "Melanie said that?" Yeah," I said, still surprised. "I do." "Cool. Can you teach me?" That threw me off. No one had ever asked me to teach them anything before. I glanced at Melanie, expecting her to shut it down, but she just shrugged. She's been into that kind of stuff lately. I looked back at Olivia. Maybe, just maybe, this visit wouldn't be a complete waste of time. That night, after Olivia went to bed, Mom finally got to the real reason she had called me here. "We need your help, Logan," she said, her voice gentle. "Melanie can't work, and we're falling behind on bills. The medical expenses have been overwhelming, and with your father's hours getting cut back." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "Let me guess. You want me to help pay for everything?" Mom hesitated. "Just until we get back on our feet." I laughed, actually laughed. "Back on your feet? Melanie has never been on her feet. She's been living off you guys since she was 17. And now you want me to join the party? That's not fair," Mom said defensively. "She's had a hard life. So have I shot back. "You just didn't care when it was me." Dad rubbed his temples, looking exhausted. "Look, son, we know we screwed up. We know we didn't treat you right back then. But please, just help us keep Olivia's life stable." Olivia. The one person in this family who wasn't responsible for any of this mess. I exhaled slowly. "I'll help, but on my terms." Mom's face lit up. "Oh, thank you, sweetheart." I held up a hand. "Listen to me. I'll cover Olivia's basic expenses directly. School costs, clothes, food. But I'm not handing you or Melanie a blank check." Melanie, who had been silent until now, scoffed. "What, you don't trust us?" "No," I said bluntly. She rolled her eyes. "Wow, so generous of you. More generous than you deserve," I muttered. Dad, to my surprise, actually nodded. "That's fair," he said quietly. "More than fair." Melanie's jaw clenched, but she didn't argue. Maybe she knew she didn't have a choice. I pushed my chair back and stood up. "I'm staying at a hotel. I'll check in on Olivia tomorrow." Mom looked disappointed, but she didn't fight me on it. As I stepped outside, Dad followed me onto the porch. "I should have stood up for you back then," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I knew it was wrong. I didn't have the courage. I stared at him. The apology I had waited a decade for. It wasn't enough, but it was something. "I know," I said. Then I walked away. Back in my hotel room, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. They had needed me. For the first time in my life, I had the upper hand, and it felt empty. I wasn't here for revenge. I wasn't here to make them pay. I was here for Olivia, the only person in that house who still had a chance at something better. I picked up my phone and sent a message. "Hey, Olivia. If you're still interested, I'll show you how to build a computer this weekend." A minute later, she replied, "Yes." For the first time since coming back, I smiled. The next morning, I pulled up to my parents' house, already regretting coming back. But then I saw Olivia waiting on the porch, practically bouncing on her heels with excitement. "Uncle Logan, I watched some videos last night on how computers work," she blurted out before I even reached the steps. I chuckled. "Yeah? You ready to build one?" She nodded so fast I thought she might fall over. "Mom said I should do something useful instead of watching cartoons all day." That surprised me. Melanie actually encouraged her to learn? Maybe there was a sliver of responsibility in her after all. I glanced inside. Melanie was on the couch, still in her pajamas, her cast resting on a pillow. She was scrolling through her phone like she had nowhere else to be, which, knowing her, she didn't. Dad was in the kitchen, nursing a cup of coffee. Mom was nowhere to be seen. "Let's get started," I said to Olivia. I took her to a table in the living room and laid out the components I had brought. A motherboard, RAM sticks, a CPU stuff that looked like alien tech to a 10-year-old, but she didn't seem intimidated. "Okay," I said, pointing. "This is the brain of the computer. It does all the thinking." Olivia leaned in, eyes wide. "Like a real brain? Sort of. But this one doesn't get distracted by snacks." She giggled, and for a moment, I forgot where I was. It felt good, teaching someone who actually cared, who actually wanted to learn. We worked for a while, and to my surprise, Melanie actually watched us. Not in an annoyed way either. More like she was seeing something she didn't quite understand. After a while, Olivia ran off to grab something, and Melanie spoke up. "You're good with her," she said, her voice quieter than usual. I didn't look at her. "Yeah, well, someone has to be." She sighed. "Look, I know I haven't been the best sister," I scoffed. Understatement of the year. She ignored that. "But I do appreciate this. What you're doing for Olivia." I finally met her eyes. For once, there was no sarcasm, no fake sweetness, just exhaustion. Maybe, just maybe, she was starting to realize that life wasn't going to hand her everything forever. "She's a good kid," I said. "She deserves better." Melanie swallowed hard. "I know." She sounded like she meant it. Later that afternoon, Dad pulled me aside. "I know things haven't been easy between us," he started, his tone careful. "And I know you don't owe us anything." I crossed my arms. "Glad we're on the same page." He let out a tired chuckle. "Fair enough. But I wanted to say, I'm proud of you, Logan. You built something on your own. You made a life for yourself." I wasn't sure how to respond to that. For so long, I had waited for those words. But now that they were here, they didn't feel like I thought they would. "Thanks," I said finally. He hesitated. "Do you think someday you could forgive us?" I exhaled. "I don't know." It was the most honest answer I could give. Dad nodded, accepting it. "Well, for what it's worth, I'm sorry." That night, I sat in my hotel room staring at my phone. I had a text from Olivia. "Best day ever. Thank you for teaching me, Uncle Logan. You're the coolest." I smiled. Then I saw another message. From Melanie. "I know I don't deserve it, but can we talk?" I hesitated, then typed back, "Tomorrow. Maybe people could change." The next morning, I drove back to my parents' house, unsure what to expect from Melanie. Her message from last night had been vague, and if there was one thing I knew about my sister, it was that she didn't usually do heartfelt conversations. Olivia met me at the door, grinning. "Uncle Logan, I was reading about CPUs last night, and did you know they can have cores like 4 or even 8? That's like 8 brains in one," I chuckled. "Yeah, and some even have 16. Her eyes widened. "No way." Before I could get too comfortable, Melanie cleared her throat from the couch. "Hey, got a minute?" I sighed. "Yeah." She gestured to the back porch. I followed her outside, where she sat down, stretching her injured leg carefully. For a minute, she just stared at the yard, picking at the sleeve of her hoodie. "I know you don't trust me," she said finally. I leaned against the railing. "That's an understatement." She let out a humorless laugh. "Yeah, I deserve that." Silence stretched between us. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. If she really wanted to talk, she'd have to do the work. She sighed. "I was a terrible sister. And not just in awe-fought sometimes kind of way. I was selfish. I took and took, and I never thought about what it was doing to you." I folded my arms, waiting. I didn't even realize how bad it was until Olivia started asking questions about you, she continued. She kept wondering why she had an uncle she'd never met, why you didn't visit for Christmas or birthdays. I stayed quiet. Melanie swallowed hard, and I didn't have an answer. Because what was I supposed to say? Oh, I treated him like crap and let Mom and Dad ship him off so I wouldn't have to share a room? I raised an eyebrow. That would have been honest. She let out a shaky breath. "Yeah, well, honesty isn't exactly my strong suit." She looked down at her lap, twisting her fingers together. "You were right, you know, about Jake. About everything. I was so convinced I had things under control, but I was just letting everyone else take care of my mess. And now, I don't even know how to fix it." I exhaled, my anger simmering. I had spent years waiting for this moment for her to admit what she had done. But now that it was here, it didn't feel as satisfying as I thought it would. "Logan," she said hesitantly, "do you think I could ever make things right?" I studied her. She looked tired, not just physically but emotionally. The weight of years of bad choices was finally catching up to her. "I don't know," I said honestly. "That's up to you." She nodded slowly, like she expected that answer. "Fair enough." I turned to go back inside, but then she said, "Thanks for helping Olivia. Even when you had no reason to." I paused, then nodded. She deserves better than what we had. The rest of the day was spent with Olivia. We finished setting up her computer, and she proudly showed me how she could identify all the different parts now. "This is so cool," she said. "I want to learn how to code next." I smirked. "You sure? It's not easy." She crossed her arms. "I love a challenge." Something about the determination in her voice made me laugh. She reminded me a little of myself, except she actually had someone looking out for her. That night, I went back to my hotel and stared at the ceiling, thinking. For years, I had told myself that I didn't need them, that I had moved on. And for the most part, I had. But coming back had made me realize something. I wasn't the same lost kid they had abandoned. I had built something for myself, a life, a future, and now they were the ones trying to prove themselves to me. The next morning, I called Grandma. "I'm proud of you," she said after I told her how things were going. I smiled. "Thanks, Grandma. I knew you'd grow into someone strong," she said. "But don't let them take advantage of that. Helping Olivia is one thing. Carrying Melanie's mess for her is another." "I know," I said, and I meant it. I wasn't here to save Melanie. I was here to make sure Olivia never felt the way I had. I stayed in town for a few more days, mostly for Olivia's sake. The more time I spent with her, the more I realized just how different she was from the rest of the family. She wasn't entitled. She didn't expect things to be handed to her. She was curious, eager to learn, and most importantly, grateful. On my last night before heading back to Florida, I stopped by the house one final time. Olivia was sitting at the dining table, tinkering with her computer. "Hey kid," I said, leaning against the door frame. She looked up, beaming. "Uncle Logan, I just installed the RAM all by myself." I smiled. "Nice job. You'll be running your own tech company before you know it." Her face lit up. "Really?" "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. "You're smart, Olivia. You can do anything you set your mind to." She hesitated, then asked, "Will you still help me?" Even when you go back? I crouched down beside her. Of course, we can video chat. I'll send you books. Whatever you need. She grinned, and I ruffled her hair. Before I left, Melanie pulled me aside. You really are leaving, huh? She said, arms crossed. I nodded. Yeah, I have a life to get back to. She looked away, chewing on her lip. I know I can't ask for much, but can you keep in touch? For Olivia, at least. I studied her for a moment. There was no manipulation in her voice, no hidden agenda, just genuine uncertainty. Yeah, I said. For Olivia. She nodded, looking both relieved and uncomfortable. Okay. I turned to go, but she spoke again. For what it's worth, I really am trying, she said. I don't want to keep screwing things up. I didn't answer right away. Finally, I said, then don't. And with that, I walked out the door. On the flight back home, I thought about everything that had happened. For years, I had imagined this moment coming back to my family, showing them that I had made something of myself, that I didn't need them, that I had won. But in the end, it wasn't about winning. It was about realizing that I had already moved on. I wasn't that abandoned 14-year-old kid anymore. I had built a life, a future, a family and the people who actually cared about me. And I wasn't going to waste another second waiting for my past to catch up. As soon as I landed, I texted Olivia. I made it home. Hope you didn't break the computer while I was gone. A minute later, she replied, excuse me, I'm a professional now. I'll have you know my computer is running perfectly. Also, when can we call? I want to learn about coding. I laughed, shaking my head. Maybe family wasn't about where you came from. Maybe it was about who you chose to keep in your life. And Olivia? She was family. Story 2, simply put. He is a pushover. While collecting my savings, my wife told her family, he's not going to do anything. They concurred. I said nothing. I simply grinned and walked away. She felt remorse 5 days later. Life has a way of taking you by surprise, even if I never imagined I'd be writing this. My daughter Betrayal first requested assistance with her iPad games on Tuesday. I was installing some educational applications on my wife Willow's iPad, which she had connected to Borealis for parental controls. When the notifications began to appear, I first disregarded them. Even though I'm not the kind to pry, I felt compelled to look after seeing my name. Willow, her sister Lucy, and their mother Aurora were all on the group chat, which was called Family Only. After a little scrolling up, I read something that made me feel nauseous and like a pushover. It was written by Willow. When I told him I needed $5,000 to plan the house remodeling, he didn't even ask. Lucy and Aurora posted laughing emoticons. While you can, you should take more, Lucy said. He is overly kind to himself. Recall how he declined that promotion, since it would require him to spend less time with his family. I sat there scrolling through months of identical messages, forgetting about Brian's game. My spouse and her relatives had been making fun of me, plotting how to gradually deplete our funds, and joking that I would never figure it out. They also made fun of my puppy dog eyes on a regular basis, every time Willow requested money. The worst thing? This was not mere rhetoric. When I launched our banking app, everything began to come together. Plans for the renovations never materialized. Lucy Willow's emergency loans had been transferring funds to a different account. The increasingly pricey work conferences. I discovered receipts for spa getaways and shopping excursions. Dad, is there a problem? I was brought back to reality by Brill's voice. I made an effort to grin and assisted her in her game, but my thoughts were racing. I had never seen this side of Willow in our 8 years of marriage, or perhaps I had. And that night, I had decided to disregard the warning signs. I gave my pal Skylar a call. I showed him the screenshots I had taken when we first met at a quiet pub. He browsed through them, his expression growing gloomy. He slid my phone back and said, "Dude, this is messed up. How will you respond?" I sipped my drink slowly. "Not yet." Skylar's eyebrow went up. "Nothing. They believe I'm easily influenced. While I determine the precise depth of this, let them continue to think that." The days that followed were bizarre. I went to work, returned home, and greeted Willow with a kiss while observing her tapping on her phone. She's probably laughing with her relatives about me. I see things that I previously didn't see. How she would become tight whenever I approached her phone. The manner in which she would call from the backyard. She took an unexpected interest in managing all of our documents. It grew worse yesterday. I heard Willow talking to Aurora on the phone. Lately, he's been working a lot. I can probably move some more money, and he won't even notice. He should shortly receive his bonus. That would be useful for my business endeavor. She chuckled. And what will he do? Defend himself? At that moment, I longed to enter, should confront her and ask for clarification. But I kept thinking about what Skylar had said in our most recent talk. Keep a record of everything. Wait till you have all the proof before telling them you're on them. So when she entered, I grinned. When she said we needed to talk about potential investment prospects, I nodded. I did my part. The dependable pushover, the trusting spouse. However, I scheduled a legal consultation for tomorrow AM. I had trouble falling asleep last night. As I lay there listening to Willow breathe steadily, I wondered how many nights she had dozed off while planning her next move. A picture of us both glowing and full of optimism from our wedding day stood next to our bed. I now question if she was calculating at the time. Willow gave me a farewell kiss this morning, declared her love for me, then sent Lucy a text. It's nearly too simple. I feel horrible sometimes. Then I recall that he will never defend himself. Isn't it somewhat his own fault? False. Foxes are said to be most dangerous when they are cornered. However, they never bring up the dog that observes silently, for the ideal opportunity to flash its fangs. Even a pushover has boundaries, even if I am one. Willow as well. She's going to have to learn that lesson the hard way. In an hour, I'll be meeting with the lawyer. I have copies of everything of it. I was not meant to be aware of the credit card bills, bank statements, or texts. Because I choose to be compassionate, they believe that I am weak. Patients are mistaken for cowards. It's okay. Allow them to chuckle. Allow them to strategize. Give them the impression that they understand me completely. They will discover that underestimating the quiet ones can often be the largest mistake you can make after 5 days, when everything is in order, every paperwork is filed, and every account is tracked down. When things get going, I'll provide an update. They're true that I'm often a pushover, but they're mistaken about one thing. So for the time being, I need to concentrate on defending Betrayal and myself. They won't like it at all, and I will definitely take action on this. Update. I want to start by saying thank you to everyone who supported my last article. You were correct. I have to approach this cautiously and methodically. My lawyer's consultation was enlightening. Money isn't the only factor here. Spreading out the screenshots I brought, she said. Systematic financial abuse is what this is. She made it clear to me that Willow's actions were deliberate manipulation rather than simple betrayal. It has been an instructive 5 days. After 8 years of marriage, you believe you know someone. Knowing the truth, however, has made it seem as though Willow has changed entirely. The small acts that I once found charming now appear to be planned. When she asks for anything, she touches my arm. The way she always brings up money issues when I'm occupied with Betrayal. Speaking of Betrayal, yesterday she said something that chilled me to the bone. She questioned Daddy, why does Mommy's work friend come to see her when you're not home? When we were playing in the backyard, I spoke in an informal tone. Who's that pal, dear? She gets her coffee from the tall man. He has a ring similar to yours and your mother's. That afternoon, I purchased a modest security camera. Nothing overt. It's just one of those package-related doorbell cameras. When I installed it, Willow didn't even notice. She had gotten another $3,000 from our savings for her emergency fund, but she was too busy messaging Lucy about it. I was surprised at how quickly the camera paid off. I took a personal day today even though I was scheduled to be at work. I saw a silver BMW come into our driveway using the app. One man left. The wedding band remained in plain sight for 2 hours. I've got it all on tape. Every doorway, every exit. It's not even the worst part, though. Aurora and Lucy joined us for supper last night. As they exchanged knowing glances over my meatloaf, I sat there, pretending to be the unaware spouse. As is common these days, the topic of money came up. Aurora spooned more potatoes onto her dish and whispered, Colton, Willow informs me that you are considering funding her new company. As I responded, I closely observed Willow's expression. Oh, she hasn't yet provided any details. Lucy leaped in. You ought to view the blueprints. It will be incredible. She trailed off, looking at Willow. But the initial investment is steep. Honey, we can talk about it later. Willow patted my hand and spoke pleasantly. I always look out for our best interests, you know. They set up their little scheme because they thought they were so clever. However, I had already viewed Willow's laptop's business venture documents. There was no company. Simple schemes to move our funds into a different account that I was unable to access. They congregated in the kitchen after supper, believing Brielle and I were watching TV. The vent echoed with their voices. He still doesn't know. Willow chuckled. When Mom brought up the business, did you notice his expression? He's so well trained by you. Lucy gave a puppy-like snicker. Be sure that everything has been moved before you inform him of the divorce, Aurora said. I didn't raise you to settle for some pushover who can't even defend himself. Your sister and I did. As we watched Brielle's cartoon, my mind racing, I squeezed her more tightly. After clearing out our accounts, they intended to surprise me with divorce papers. All of a sudden, the timing made sense. Next month was when my yearly bonus was due. Willow and her friend were working late today in the BMW, definitely. A forensic accountant met with me. The numbers provide a compelling narrative. Credit cards I was unaware of, hidden accounts, and missing money. Everything is now painstakingly documented. I also hired a private investigator. Expensive, but worth it. Within 2 days, he had photos of Willow and her friend at various hotels. He also found something interesting. Her friend isn't just married. He's married to one of her biggest clients. Skylar thinks I should confront her now, but that would be premature. You've got enough evidence. He argued over drinks tonight. Why wait? Because tomorrow is the annual family dinner at Aurora's house. The whole family will be there. Lucy's husband, Aurora's new boyfriend, all the people who've been laughing at the pushover behind his back. I've arranged for some interesting documents to be delivered during dinner. Nothing dramatic. Just copies of bank statements, hotel receipts, and some choice screenshots from that family group chat. One copy for each person at the table. They think I'm weak because I'm quiet. They mistake kindness for cowardice. Tomorrow, they'll learn that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should watch most carefully. The best part, Willow doesn't even realize that while she's been playing her game, I've already won every document, filed every account traced, every item of proof documented and legally validated. I just have one more role to play the oblivious husband at a family dinner. Then we'll see who's really been the pushover all along. Update coming tomorrow night. And trust me, you won't want to miss this one. Update 2. I'm still processing everything that happened over dinner last night, but I promised an update. So here it is. The evening started regularly enough. Aurora's house was packed with the typical commotion of family reunions. Lucy's husband was tending the grill. Aurora's boyfriend was making cocktails, while Willow was assisting her mother in the kitchen. Brielle was living with Skylar's family. I'd organized that early, knowing how the night may go. I played my part flawlessly. The usual calm, nice Colton. I chuckled at Lucy's husband's jokes, complimented Aurora on her new curtains, and acted as though I didn't see their knowing glances. Willow appeared particularly loving, most likely because she believed she was going to carry out her grand scheme. During appetizers, she whispered nicely, "Honey, we ought to announce the business endeavor to everyone right now," I thought. Exactly on time. Aurora became alert. "No doubt, Colton, you will be ecstatic about this chance." The doorbell rang at that moment. "I'll get it," Lucy offered, but I was on my feet already. "No, let me. I think it's the surprise I planned." Their expressions of bewilderment were invaluable. Their script did not call for this. I came back with 6 manila envelopes, each with a name on it. I stated calmly, "Before we talk about any commercial endeavors." I believed that these records could be of interest to everyone. As they opened the envelopes, the room became quiet. As they became aware of what they were seeing, I saw a change in their expressions. Hotel receipts, bank statements, screenshots of the messages in their group chat, images of Willow and her companion, time-stamped, dated, recorded. Willow's expression became pale. "I can explain, Colton." "Could you explain how you took $47,000 out of our savings?" Quietly, I asked. "Or even the credit cards that I was unaware of. Or maybe you want to explain the hotel meetings to your client's wife." Lucy attempted to leap in. "Clearly there is a misunderstanding here, such as the misconception that you assisted Willow in creating false accounts." I looked at her spouse. "Were you aware of your wife's role in concealing stolen funds?" The room exploded. Lucy was being yelled at by her husband. Aurora was attempting to control the damage. Willow was sobbing because she had been caught, not because she was sorry. "You were not authorized to snoop on me." Willow yelled like If stealing from me was wrong, I remained low to make fun of me, your family, and cheating on me as well as a married guy. All you're doing is attempting to scare us, Aurora spoke, but her tone wavered. I took out my phone and listened to an audio of Aurora talking about how to conceal assets before to issuing divorce papers. The spouse of Lucy left. The boyfriend excused himself clumsily. I've already chatted with his spouse, I informed Willow. The evidence I have obtained is of great importance to her. Her attorney will contact you. Everything is damaged by you. Lucy spit. No, I said. Did you guys do that yourself? I simply recorded it. I straightened my jacket and got to my feet. The paperwork for the divorce has already been submitted. Don't stress over answering immediately. There will be a lot for your lawyers to go over. The report from the forensic accountants is really fascinating to read. Willow was able to speak at last. How about Betrayal? Are you referring to the daughter you intended to use as leverage? The one you talked about in your texts, assuming complete custody of. Those conversations will be of great interest to the custody evaluator. I glanced back as I made my way to the door. Oh, and Willow, the company you wanted to talk about tonight. The one that required an investment of $50,000. I've given the authorities those forged documents. Fraud is a very serious crime. Nothing can be proven by you, Aurora yelled. I grinned. I have evidence of everything. Every communication, every exchange, every encounter. When everyone was giggling about the pushover, I was constructing an impenetrable case. Before I left, Lucy was texting feverishly, most likely alerting her husband to the financial consequences. Willow was being scolded by Aurora for allowing this to occur. Willow simply sat there, understanding at last that her flawless plan had failed. When I woke up this morning, there were more than 100 messages and 47 missed calls. It seems that Willow's friend is not overly pleased that his wife has discovered that Lucy's husband is discussing a divorce. After deciding that the drama wasn't worth it, Aurora's boyfriend departed. An hour ago, my attorney gave me a call. Willow's position isn't great, but she's trying to play hardball. The speed at which people turn on one another when caught is astounding. In return for leniency, Lucy has already offered to testify about the financial fraud. Today I took Brian to the park. Why didn't Mommy come home last night? She asked. I simply informed her that adults occasionally require time to reflect on their errors. She appeared to acknowledge that the upcoming months would be difficult. However, I'm prepared. My kindness led them to believe that I was weak. I chose peace, so they thought I was a pushover. They never understood that being loud or aggressive isn't a sign of true strength. It all comes down to patience and strategy. We begin the legal process tomorrow. Willow's pal is dealing with his own issue. Lucy may be charged with fraud in Aurora. She's coming to understand that decisions have repercussions. After everything is done, I'll provide an update. But I have to concentrate on Betrayal for the time being. The most important thing in all of this is her. This pushover has teeth, it turns out. The last update. That supper at Aurora's house was 6 months ago. Many of you have requested an update. And I can finally tell you how things turned out now that the dust has cleared. Let's begin with Willow's companion. He wasn't just divorced by his wife. Half of his company was hers. After learning about the affair, she remained calm. She received retribution. She made calls to all of their significant clients, including some of their close friends. His reputation was in ruins by the time she finished. According to what I've heard, he drives for a ride-sharing firm and lives in a studio apartment. Willow's situation was not much better. Do you recall the fictitious business paperwork they intended to use to obtain my investment? Before 3 other guys came forward with identical tales, it became out that they had already pulled that fraud. That trend piqued the eye of the authorities. Willow is being charged with grand theft and fraud. While an inquiry was conducted, her license was suspended. Working with someone who defrauded their own husband is not something anyone wants to do. Lucy's life fell apart in a dramatic way. Her spouse didn't simply walk out. When he learned that she had been assisting Willow in hiding money for years, he lost it. He had their money examined by a forensic accountant of his own, discovered that she had also been stealing from his business. She is being charged with a crime. Her spouse ensured that everyone in their social circle understood the reason. By arguing that she was only helping her girls, Aurora attempted to play the victim. When the investigators discovered emails proving she was the brains behind many of their scams, that lie came crashing down. She had previously assisted her daughters in pursuing guys she believed to be weak. When her partner learned he would be the next to go, he fled. The divorce process moved along really quickly. I documented everything, and Willow's attempts to portray me as domineering failed miserably. Their group chat comments ridiculing me while attempting to steal my money caught the judge's attention in particular. There's nothing like penning a conspiracy to expedite a divorce. This is where things become fascinating, though. Do you recall that I was always referred to as a pushover? They underestimated me because of the same patience and attention to detail. I was able to create a strong case because to it, money trails dating back years were discovered by the forensic accountant. Every transaction, secret account, and fake paper is painstakingly recorded. It wasn't even a struggle for custody. Those messages about applying leverage to Brill, the ones in which Willow talked of severing my bond with our daughter. In family court, they performed poorly. Willow and I were granted primary custody with supervised visits. Their social circle disintegrated when she wasn't occupied with her legal issues. It turns out that individuals dislike being discovered to have had a friendship with a criminal. When Willow's high-class pals discovered she had been lying about everything, they vanished. It seems that Lucy's membership at the country club was canceled. Charges of fraud are against their code of conduct. Aurora was asked to resign from her leadership positions by her church. For them, the financial fallout was severe. The court mandated fines in addition to the complete return of the stolen money. They frozen Willow's secret accounts. Lucy's possessions were confiscated. In order to pay for her daughter's legal bills, Aurora's retirement fund suffered a significant loss. I ran into Willow in the grocery store last week. She was purchasing generic brands using a prepaid card. Brielle saw her despite her best efforts to evade me. She turned to face me after saying, "Hello, Mommy. Can we have some ice cream, Daddy?" Willow's expression as I took out my wallet. It was priceless. The same one Mom used to make fun of me for being frugal with money. Even more so when Brielle joyfully talked about her new private school and our recent vacation. Lucy's hubby gave me a call yesterday. Evidence of similar plots dating back to their undergraduate years has been discovered by him. They sought to ruin the lives of other men they targeted. He's handing it all over to the police. The inquiry is growing. Aurora begged me to be reasonable and dismissed the accusations in a letter, said that I was ruining her family. In one note, she urged her daughters to steal from me, and I returned copies of all those messages. There are repercussions for actions. I was questioned by Skylar if I felt horrible about the outcome. I don't. They made their own decisions. All I did was make sure they couldn't avoid the repercussions. They believed that silence was a sign of weakness. They never understood how the silent ones watch everything, retain everything, and know when to attack. I relocated to a new home and a better school district with Brielle. She's doing well, making friends, and processing things with the help of a counselor. She questioned why some individuals do horrible things last night. I informed her that how we choose to react is more important than what other people do to us. The ultimate irony is that I would have assisted them if they had simply been truthful. I would have helped Willow's real company if she needed money. I would have helped Lucy if she was having trouble. They lost everything instead because they opted for avarice and derision. Karma occasionally requires a little assistance. They pretended I was too helpless to defend myself while they played their game. They were unaware that I was playing a longer game, one in which documentation and patience are easy lies and quick grabs. So here we are, facing societal disintegration and criminal prosecution. In our new house, my daughter and I are enjoying supper. The pushover they made fun of turned out to be stronger than they thought. Keep in mind that not all strength roars. It simply makes notes, constructs a case, and waits for the right opportunity to bare its teeth. My last update will be this one. I have to live a new life with Brielle. And it doesn't include lingering on the past. I appreciate all of your help, Reddit. Sometimes it makes all the difference to know that people are looking out for you. Story 3. I gave my sister a $5,000 loan to pay for her unexpected expenses. She flashed luxury bags on Instagram a week later. Calm down. You'll make it through. She sent an SMS. I didn't answer. Let her believe she won. Every morning I discover that I have 30 missed calls. I never imagined myself to be that guy who posts about family drama on Reddit. Yet here I am, looking foolishly at my phone while my sister Lily's Instagram story keeps playing, with a statement that reads, "Treat yourself with money I swear I need for emergency bills." She is shown with Gucci bags all around her. Allow me to go back 3 weeks. It was around 11 p.m. Lily was crying so much that I could hardly understand her when she phoned. It had to do with final notices, possible eviction, and how her landlord was acting completely out of character. In order to pay her expenses and keep her flat, she needed $5,000. She pleaded, "Axel, please. I have no idea who else to ask. I can't stand to put further strain on my parents, who already assist with my auto payments. I swear, I'll reimburse you for my next wages." Sitting in my dimly lit living room, I saw my image on the TV, while experiencing the well-known tug of Big Brother's protective mode. Everyone has always rushed to Lily's aid because she is the family's baby. This time, though, something didn't feel right. How did your savings fare? Didn't you just receive the bonus you boasted about last month? I asked. Bills for medical care? Quickly, she said. Do you recall that strange feeling in my stomach? When insurance didn't cover all, the situation merely became worse. I ought to have applied more pressure. I should have requested evidence of these bills. It was late, but I should have paid attention to the voice in my brain that kept telling me that things didn't add up. The idea of my younger sister being evicted was too much for me to bear, and I was exhausted. I promised to transfer the funds tonight, but I need this back, Lily. The first am not my parents. This cannot be dismissed. God, oh God, thank you very much. My life is literally being saved by you. She was almost singing. I'll begin repaying you the next month. I promise. $500 a month till it is finished. There is no better brother than you. I sent the money right away. She followed it up with a series of loving emoticons and an image of her confirmation receipt. I also adore you. It ought to have ended there. Let's fast forward to now. On my lunch break, I'm browsing Instagram when I come across her tale. I initially believed I was seeing things, but I was mistaken. My sister is surrounded by opulent shopping bags at what appears to be an upscale mall. It was posted 2 hours ago, according to the timestamp. As I watch the remainder of her narrative, my hands are shaking. A mirror selfie with a new luxury coat, winter attire, a close-up of a Gucci bag, an early birthday present to me, and other pictures of her and her friends at a fancy restaurant are all included. Women who eat lunch. I text her right away. Would you mind describing the buying spree? How did the emergency expenses turn out? There are 3 dots. Go away. Make another appearance. At last. Don't be theatrical, please. After all that tension, I needed to pamper myself. Calm down. You'll make it through. You're not in dire need of money. I look at my phone. My ears are pounding with blood. I worked my ass off for 10 years, living below my income. Be cautious when saving. My sister believes she has the right to spend my money on high-end purses because of this. She texted again. In addition, I promise to reimburse you. What I spend money on doesn't matter to you. Being responsible isn't the only thing that matters. Always. I don't answer. What's the point? She obviously sees nothing wrong with her actions. Rather, I launch my banking app and take a screenshot of the 3-week-old transfer. I took a snapshot of her Instagram story after that. I store everything on my phone in a folder called Lily Loan. I have a feeling that I'll need it. It keeps buzzing on my phone. Lily sent another SMS, "Hi there. Don't disregard me." Ren, you're being so immature. It's unbelievable that you're taking this so seriously. All right. Act as such. Mom used to say that you were too frugal with money. I put my phone face down on my desk and mute the conversation. The remainder of my lunch break is a haze of incredulity and rage. I have 17 missed calls from Lily, and a voicemail from my mother asking why I'm bothering my sister over money by the time I get home that night. The worst thing? Lily's actions are not even the first time she's done this. She has never been foolish enough to share proof on social media before. I've been ignoring this pattern for years, but as I sit here typing this, I'm starting to notice it. The crises that always seem to arise when she finds out that someone is wealthy. Guilt trips. The way that whenever she is called out, she always manages to play the victim. My phone continues to buzz. Lily began messaging me on all the platforms she could find. We need to have a family conversation about this. According to Mom's latest texts, there was only one message from Dad. When you can, give me a call. Tonight, I'm not going to call anyone. I'm duplicating everything instead. The Instagram posts, the texts, the transfer. I've read enough posts on Reddit to predict where this might go. Although small claims court isn't my first option, I'm tired of being the trustworthy sibling who can be forced to pay money. I just received another notification on Instagram. Lily has made another post. This time, it's a nostalgic picture of us as children with a corny message about always supporting one another. If it weren't so frustrating, the manipulation would be amusing because it's so obvious. I believe I need some guidance. Go through it. Am I going overboard? Should I simply dismiss this as a costly lesson in lending money to relatives? Should I take this to court and risk upsetting my entire family dynamic instead? Because all I can think about at the moment is how many more crises my sister will face and how many more relatives she will try to coerce into paying for them. First update, I want to thank everyone for their tremendous support of my previous post. I didn't think it would blow up that way. The past week has seen a lot of events, none of which have been positive. Do you recall how I brought up my cousin Abigail in the comments section? Well, she saw my post and got in touch with me privately. Turned out she follows me on Reddit. Hey Abby, what she told me made my blood run cold. Apparently Lily pulled almost the exact same stunt with her last year. Different emergency, same shopping spree, aftermath. Abigail just never said anything because she was too embarrassed about falling for it. It's not even the worst part though. The day after my post, Lily showed up at my workplace. Just walked right in during lunch hour making a scene in the lobby. We need to talk about what you're doing to this family, she announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. I had to step outside with her to avoid making an even bigger spectacle. What I'm doing to the family, I asked her. You stole $5,000 from me. I didn't steal anything. She was almost shouting. You gave it to me. And now you're trying to turn everyone against me because you're jealous that I'm actually enjoying my life instead of being a boring hermit like you. That's when she dropped the bomb that Mom had offered to help her out with the money she owed me. Apparently, our parents are taking out a loan against their house to cover it. The same house they're still paying off. The same house they're supposed to be retiring in. I told Lily absolutely not. This wasn't about the money anymore. This was about her taking responsible for once in her life. She stormed off, but not before telling me I was dead to her. Real mature. Later that night, our brother Josiah called. He's usually the neutral party in family disputes, but even he sounded tired. Mom's a mess, he said. She's convinced you're trying to ruin Lily's life over a little misunderstanding. Dad's not talking to anyone. And Lily, well, she's Lily. I asked him if he knew about Abigail. He went quiet for a moment. That's not all, he finally said. Remember Uncle Eli, the one who helped Lily with her car down payment last summer? Yes, there was no car payment. She sold the car 2 months later and kept the money. The next day, Mom organized a family dinner to sort things out. I didn't want to go, but Josiah convinced me it would be worse if I didn't show up. He was wrong. The dinner started tense and went downhill from there. Dad sat at one end of the table, staring at his plate. Mom kept trying to play peacemaker while simultaneously guilting me about holding grudges. Lily spent the first 20 minutes on her phone, ignoring everyone. Then she started in on childhood grievances. You were always Mom and Dad's favorite, she said, putting her phone down. Everything was always so easy for you. Perfect grades, perfect job, perfect life. Do you know how hard it is being your sister? Nothing I do is ever good enough. What I was hearing was unbelievable. This isn't about childhood favorites, Lily. This is about you lying to get money from me and then spending it on designer bags. You see? She turned to Mom, tears starting. He's always looked down on me like this, always judging how I spend my money. My money. I corrected her. You spent my money. Oh, please. Like you can't afford it. You're just mad because for once, I'm not living by your rules. That's when Dad finally spoke up. Lily, enough. His voice was quiet but firm. What you did was wrong. Period. The look of betrayal on Lily's face would have been comical if it wasn't so sad. She turned to Mom, expecting backup, but even Mom was looking uncomfortable now. I can't believe this, Lily said, standing up. You're all against me. Fine, fine. I don't need any of you. She grabbed her bag, Gucci naturally, and stormed out. Mom started to get up to follow her, but Dad stopped her with a hand on her arm. Let her go, he said. This has gone on long enough. The rest of dinner was silent and awkward as I was leaving. Dad pulled me aside. I'm filing the small claims court paperwork tomorrow, he said quietly. I know you've been thinking about it. I'll be your witness. I started to protest, but he cut me off. Son, sometimes loving someone means letting them face consequences. Your mother won't like it, but she'll understand eventually. That was 3 days ago. This morning, I got served with screenshots of every embarrassing photo, text message, and social media post Lily could find from the past decade. She's threatening to expose me if I don't drop the whole thing. The messages range from mildly embarrassing high school stuff to completely fabricated stories about things I supposedly did. Josiah says she sent similar threats to Dad. Abigail's gotten them too, just for talking to me. Even our youngest cousin got a message asking for dirt on me. I'm not backing down. The small claims paperwork is filed, and I have a folder full of evidence that would make any judge's job pretty straightforward. But I have to admit, watching my family tear itself apart over this is harder than I expected. The weirdest part, in between the threats and tantrums, Lily keeps posting these sugary, sweet throwback photos on Instagram. Family is everything. She captions them like she's not simultaneously trying to destroy everyone who won't enable her anymore. I guess my question now is, how do you handle someone who sees themselves as the victim, even while they're actively victimizing others? Because at this point, I'm not sure if winning in court will fix anything at all. Update 2. I genuinely thought this situation couldn't get more absurd. Then I woke up to a voice note from Lily this morning that had me questioning reality. Hey, so I've been thinking. She started sounding unusually chipper. I know you're upset about the money thing, but I actually have a really amazing opportunity for you. I have over 50K followers now, and my engagement rate is literally insane. I could promote your work to my audience. That's like way more valuable than $5K if you think about it. We could just call it even. I played it 3 times to be sure I wasn't hallucinating. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I really went into her Instagram metrics. Turns out my cousin Josiah works in social media and has access to technologies that can examine profiles. What we found was fascinating. Of Lily's 50K followers, around 40K were purchased. The engagement largely bought accounts and comment pods. Her true audience is maybe 2,000 people max, and most of them are other aspiring influencers doing follow for follow. But here's where it gets better. While Josiah was investigating into this, he discovered something else. Lily has been running what she calls a consultancy firm, charging prospective influencers hundreds of dollars for social media development techniques. Her entire business concept is simply selling the same bogus follower packages she utilized on her own account, priced up by 300%. I didn't react to her voice note. Instead, I emailed it to Dad, who's been gathering evidence for the small claims lawsuit. He phoned me immediately. Eli, your brother, discovered something more. He sounded worn out as he spoke. Do you recall the investment opportunity Lily was promoting during the Christmas season? That one in which she assured everyone of 30% returns? She attempted to get me to invest $10,000 sand, some unique marketing collective, I recalled. I said no. Others apparently had not been so fortunate. In a pattern that made my stomach turn, we pierced each other for the next hour while on a 3-way call with Eli. There was more to the fancy bags than just an addiction to shopping. Props were what they were. Well done on the picture she was selling to con people out of their money. Mom still refuses to accept it. She arrived yesterday at my house. She held a picture book from our childhood, tears in her eyes. She pointed to a photo of 6-year-old Lily dressed as a princess and added, "Look at her here. What a wonderful child she was. What went wrong? If I didn't withdraw the court action, the nice girl threatened to expose everyone about my hidden gambling addiction, which doesn't exist, but I didn't have the heart to tell her." In relation to the court matter, the date of our initial hearing was scheduled. In response, Lily shared a 10-minute Instagram story about financial exploitation and poisonous family members. She even included a few hazy allusions to childhood trauma that she isn't yet comfortable discussing. The emails then arrived. Business proposals, page after page, each one more irrational than the previous. She would advertise my company. She would create a success narrative for me on Instagram. She would include me in her next abundance mindset seminar. Early birds only pay $997. Once more, Josiah attempted to step in. Thinking that neutral terrain could be helpful, he scheduled a meeting at a coffee shop. Lily arrived with a brand new Chanel purse 2 hours late. This, She saw me gazing at it and said, "Oh, it's just borrowed from a brand partnership I'm doing." Under the strap, the price tag was still partially visible. She devoted the whole meeting to promoting her most recent idea, a coaching program for luxury living that she hopes to start. A modest investment of $15,000 is all she needs. My promised profits would be reduced by the $5,000 she owes me. She continued repeating, "Think bigger than $5K. The goal here is to create riches for future generations. Are you not interested in becoming a part of something revolutionary?" At last, Josiah lost his temper. Your capacity to trust your own falsehoods is the sole novel aspect of this situation. She told us we were only envious of her business zeal before leaving in tears. She sent me an email this morning with a PDF attachment. It's a contract that offers to make me her company partner in exchange for her debt being paid off. Clearly, the document is a copy of a template she found online. She neglected to fill in the specifics, thus there are still placeholders. The worst part? On the email, she sees her legal team. The address, 123@gmail.com, is legaleagledc.com. I sent all of this to my real attorney. Yes, I did get one at last. One laughing emoji followed by, "Don't worry, we've got this," was his response. Tonight, Dad phoned once again. It seems that Lily is now asserting that the judicial system is biased against business owners and that she will be defending herself in court. She has been discussing maritime law and viewing YouTube videos on sovereign individuals. I feel like laughing. This is my sister, as the other part recalls, someone with whom I formerly shared secrets. At county fairs, I once lifted someone on my shoulders to improve her view of the fireworks. However, I then see that my previous Instagram posts are getting fresh comments. Financial dishonesty is a recognized characteristic of this person. Avoid it. Infamous con artist. All from accounts that were just made and had no followers. Next week is the court date. Mom no longer takes sides and now simply posts Bible passages to our family group chat every day. With scary efficiency, Dad is recording everything. Lily and Josiah worry about making enough cookies to feed an army. She just shared another anecdote on Instagram. She is starting a podcast on overcoming betrayal in her family. I should definitely point out that she continues to purchase her Spotify premium subscription with my credit card. I have just recently realized that I have no idea what I anticipate from the court. Now, the money almost feels unimportant. Answers are what I truly desire, but I'm beginning to see that they could cost more than $5. And lastly, an update. Karma occasionally requires a little encouragement. It was court day yesterday. Lily did not appear. Not initially. Anyhow, she received a spa treatment to purge the negative energy before confronting her abusers, as seen in her Instagram story. She finally showed up 2 hours late, carrying what I now know to be a phony Birkin bag and sporting sunglasses inside. It's getting ahead of itself, though. I'll begin by discussing what transpired the evening before the court. Do you recall that I said Josiah is active on social media? He has been preserving everything in secret. Even the intimate anecdotes about close friends that Lily believed were solely accessible to her tight circle are posted online. We caught her boasting about her infallible method of controlling family members in this way. Here's the real kicker, though. Dad's pal, a retired FBI agent. In reality, he never retired. He's still going strong. It turns out that when several wire fraud allegations began to surface, Lily's little consultancy firm attracted some notice. None of this was in my plan. All I wanted was my money returned. However, I didn't think twice when Dad's buddy asked whether I would be willing to assist in constructing a case. The masterclass money she has been receiving through fictitious company accounts were transmitted by all of those Instagram direct messages in which she has been selling bundles of bogus followers. She made a proposal at Christmas to that investing group. All emails were kept. After reviewing our information, the small claims court judge concluded that there was far more at stake than $5. He was not mistaken. When Lily entered the courtroom, she assumed she would be dealing with a straightforward civil lawsuit. Rather, she discovered 2 federal officers with a warrant waiting. It turns out that using Instagram to launch a pyramid scheme is not only immoral. Federal wire fraud is what it is. The expression on her face as they got close, priceless. She attempted to run, but she was not very successful with those 5-inch Louboutins, which were most likely phony. This is harassment. As they read her rights, She let out a scream. I run my own business. I'm assisting others in becoming wealthy. Tell them I didn't say anything, Axel. Simply seen her phone being seized. Her precious, precious phone with all her business records still intact. Mom wasn't present. It was too much for her to bear. However, Dad was standing next to me. They are unchangeable. Josiah was on the other side of me, discreetly recording everything for proof. And maybe a little for satisfaction, he said. Fraudulent transactions totaling more than $200,000 were discovered by the federal officers. The very least, that emergency is still being investigated. She required $5,000 from me in order to pay those who threatened to expose her past scams. Most of the fancy bags are bogus. She was posing as authentic. The brand alliances she boasted about, total fabrication. She wasn't even the owner of the apartment where she was allegedly being evicted. She had been collecting rent for the same space from 3 other people while illegally subletting it. My favorite part is this. Do you recall the podcast she started about overcoming betrayal in her family? It is being used as evidence by the FBI. It turns out that it's not the best idea to publicly admit to financial crimes. Following her removal, her attorney, this time a court-appointed attorney, came to us to discuss a possible agreement. Quickly shut that down, Dad. The time for bargains was before she sought to damage her brother's reputation. This morning, my aunt called in tears. It seems that Lily defrauded her of $25,000 for a fictitious, exclusive luxury travel club. There are others besides her. Every day, we discover new victims. Family, friends, followers. Nobody was excluded. Although the federal investigation is still in progress, years rather than months and fines are already being discussed. Let's assume that the least of her concerns is the $5K she owes me. Right now, at last, Mom ceased sending Bible verses. She is still attempting to comprehend how she overlooked the warning flags for so long while attending treatment. Dad hasn't spoken much, but he did mention something that has stayed with me. Allowing someone to suffer the consequences is sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do. Lily's Instagram account is still active, but the federal government now controls it. It is being used to locate further victims. It is instructive to read the comments section. It turns out that she tried to con other brothers than myself, the one person who prevented her from getting away with it. Some relatives believe I overreached myself. I could have handled it in secret and kept it inside the family, they say. But for so long, she was able to get away with this because of precisely that kind of thinking. I was notified that she had attempted to access my Netflix account while in custody on the day they arrested her. She continued to attempt to steal everything she could. I banned her on all platforms, froze my credit, and changed all of my passwords yesterday. Then, using the money I would have spent on her birthday present the next month, I treated myself to supper. No refunds for poor choices were posted on the restaurant's wall. I uploaded a photo to our family group chat. Dad gave a thumbs up in response. Mom got out of the conversation. Josiah inquired as to whether I felt horrible about the outcome. I don't think individuals only learn when the repercussions are larger than their justifications. Regarding the $5,000, I'm giving it to a charity organization that informs people about social media fraud. It seems appropriate. Next month is when Lily's court date is scheduled. I'll be present. Front row. I want her to see my penalties when she understands that her largest error was not defrauding me, not because I need to see hers. It was assuming I wouldn't defend myself.